Hello, and welcome. I'm Joy, and tonight, I'll be your guide, your companion, your pilot on this journey. Tonight, you won't just listen to English. You'll begin to think in it, feel it, and understand it naturally. This way of learning is different. You don't need to memorize rules. You don't need to translate in your head. You don't need to feel pressure. Instead, you simply listen. And let your mind absorb the rhythm, the meaning, the feeling of English. And as you relax, something powerful begins to happen. Your brain starts building connections quietly. Words begin to feel familiar, sentences begin to flow more easily. So take a slow breath, let your body relax, and allow your mind to become calm and open. There's nothing you need to do, just listen gently. And as we move through conversations, places, and moments together, you'll notice your confidence growing, naturally, without effort. English will begin to feel comfortable, clear, like a part of your own inner voice. So sit back, relax, and let the journey begin. The morning air at the train station feels crisp and clean, carrying a faint chill that lingers on your skin as you stand on the platform. The sky above is pale blue, slowly brightening as the sun rises behind distant mountain peaks. The station itself is quiet but alive in small ways, with soft footsteps echoing against stone tiles and the occasional hum of luggage wheels rolling past. There is a calm order here, a rhythm that feels steady and unhurried, as if everything is already in motion even before the train arrives. A soft announcement drifts through the air, its tone gentle and precise, followed by the distant sound of metal gliding along rails. You turn slightly, noticing how people around you begin to shift their attention toward the same direction. No one rushes. No one raises their voice. There is a shared understanding, almost unspoken, that the journey will begin exactly when it is meant to. The train appears gradually, emerging from the curve of the track like something that belongs to the landscape itself. Its smooth body reflects the soft light of the morning, and as it slows, there is a quiet, steady hum beneath your feet. The doors open with a subtle sound, and a gentle flow of passengers begins to move forward, stepping inside with calm, practiced ease. As you enter the carriage, the atmosphere changes. The air feels warmer, softer, carrying the faint scent of clean fabric and polished wood. Large windows line the sides, already framing glimpses of the world outside. You find your seat near the window, and as you settle in, there is a sense of quiet anticipation building within you, like the beginning of something slow and meaningful. The train begins to move almost without effort. There is no sudden jolt, no sharp motion, just a gradual shift, a smooth glide forward that you feel more than you hear. Outside, the platform starts to drift away, and the station becomes smaller, fading into the background as the journey gently takes hold. The early landscape unfolds slowly. Green fields stretch outward, touched by the soft light of the morning. Small houses appear in the distance, their roofs angled neatly, smoke rising faintly from chimneys. There is a stillness in these scenes, a kind of quiet life that feels distant yet familiar at the same time. As the train gains speed, the rhythm of the tracks becomes more noticeable. A soft, steady pattern repeats beneath you, creating a sense of movement that feels almost meditative. You find yourself watching the world pass by, not with urgency, but with a quiet curiosity that grows with each passing moment. The mountains begin to reveal themselves gradually. At first, They appear as distant shapes along the horizon, their outlines softened by the morning light. Then, slowly, they rise higher, becoming more defined, their slopes covered in deep green forests and patches of lingering snow. There is a quiet power in their presence, something steady and timeless that draws your attention without asking for it. The train curves gently, and with each turn, the view shifts. A river appears beside the tracks, its surface reflecting the sky in soft, moving patterns. The water flows calmly, following its own path through the valley, and for a moment, it feels as though the train is simply accompanying it, moving alongside in quiet harmony. Inside the carriage, there is a soft murmur of life. Someone adjusts their seat. A child leans closer to the window, pointing silently at something outside. A quiet conversation drifts from a few rows ahead, blending into the background like part of the journey itself. Nothing feels intrusive. Everything settles into a gentle rhythm. You rest your hand lightly against the window, feeling the faint vibration of the train as it continues forward. The glass is cool, and beyond it, the landscape feels both close and distant at the same time. There is something calming about this separation, about observing the world without needing to move through it directly. The mountains grow closer now, their details becoming clearer. You begin to notice the textures of the terrain, the way the trees cluster along the slopes, the subtle changes in color as the light shifts. Shadows stretch across the valleys, creating patterns that move slowly with the passing time. A tunnel approaches, carved into the side of a mountain. The train enters it smoothly, and for a brief moment, the outside world disappears. The sound changes slightly, becoming deeper, more enclosed. The light dims, and the reflection of the carriage interior appears faintly on the window, blending your presence with the space around you. Then, just as gently, the train emerges again. The light returns, brighter now, revealing a new stretch of landscape. The mountains feel closer, more present, and the air outside seems clearer. As if the journey has carried you into a quieter, more untouched part of the world. You notice a small village nestled between the hills. The buildings are simple but carefully arranged, their colors soft and warm against the surrounding green. There is no visible rush, no sense of urgency, just a quiet existence that feels steady and complete. The train continues its path, winding through the valley with ease. Each turn reveals something new, yet everything feels connected, part of a larger, unfolding scene. You begin to lose track of time, not because it has stopped, but because it no longer feels important in the same way. The sunlight grows stronger, casting a gentle warmth across your seat. It moves slowly, shifting with the train's direction, touching different parts of the carriage as if following its own quiet rhythm. You adjust slightly, letting the light rest on your hands, noticing how it changes the way everything looks, even the smallest details. A soft voice nearby mentions how beautiful the view is, and someone else agrees quietly, their tone calm and certain. The words are simple, but they carry a shared feeling, something that doesn't need to be explained. You find yourself understanding it without effort, simply by being here. Outside, the landscape begins to rise. The train climbs steadily, moving deeper into the mountains. The air feels lighter somehow, even from inside the carriage, and the views stretch farther, revealing layers of hills and peaks that seem to go on endlessly. You watch as a group of trees passes by, their leaves moving slightly in the breeze. For a brief moment, the sunlight filters through them in a way that feels almost still. as if time has slowed just enough for you to notice it fully. The train continues forward, steady and calm, carrying you deeper into the heart of the mountains. And as you sit there, watching the world unfold beyond the glass, there is a quiet sense that this journey is not just about where you are going, but about everything you are noticing along the way. The movement, the light, the silence between sounds, all of it begins to settle into something gentle and continuous. Something that doesn't need to be rushed. Something that simply unfolds, moment by moment, as the train carries you further into the vast, quiet beauty of the Swiss Alps. The rhythm of the train settles deeper into your awareness, becoming something steady beneath everything else. It no longer feels like motion alone, but like a quiet presence guiding the journey forward. You shift slightly in your seat, drawn by a subtle curiosity to see more, to experience the space beyond the window in a different way. You rise slowly, careful with your balance as the train continues its smooth movement. The aisle stretches gently ahead, lined with soft lighting and muted tones that reflect the calm atmosphere inside. Each step feels unhurried, supported by the quiet stability of the carriage. There is no need to rush. The journey allows you to move at your own pace. As you walk, the perspective changes. The view outside no longer belongs to a single frame. It shifts with each step, offering brief glimpses of new angles between the seats. Fragments of landscape that appear and disappear as you pass. A valley opens for a moment, then fades behind a seat back. A distant peak catches the light, then slips away as you move forward. You pause near a wider window at the end of the carriage, where the view feels more open. The glass stretches higher here, and the landscape seems closer somehow, as if the boundary between inside and outside has softened. The train curves again, and for a moment, you can see the length of it ahead. Bending gently along the mountainside like a quiet thread woven into the land. There is a sense of elevation now, more noticeable than before. The valley below feels deeper, and the river that once ran beside the tracks now appears farther away. Its surface catching light in small, distant flashes. The scale of everything begins to shift in your perception. What once felt wide now feels vast. A narrow path comes into view below, tracing its way along the hillside. You notice a single figure walking slowly along it, their movement small but steady against the larger landscape. For a brief moment, the train and the walker seem to share the same direction, two quiet journeys unfolding side by side, each with its own pace. You continue walking, passing through the gentle transitions between carriages. The soft connection between them moves slightly underfoot, a subtle reminder of the train's continuous motion. The sound changes here, just a little, becoming more layered, then softening again as you enter the next space. This carriage feels slightly different. A few passengers sit with open notebooks or cameras resting in their hands. Someone adjusts a lens quietly, angling it toward the window. Another leans back, eyes half closed, simply listening to the rhythm of the journey. No one seems to be in a hurry to capture everything. The experience itself feels enough. You find a seat near another window, this one facing a different direction. The light has shifted again, softer now, with thin clouds beginning to drift across the sky. They move slowly, casting gentle shadows over the slopes, changing the colors of the landscape in quiet, passing moments. The train begins a gradual ascent, more noticeable in the way the horizon tilts slightly and the valleys stretch wider beneath you. The movement remains smooth, almost effortless, but you can feel the steady climb. The quiet determination of the train as it continues upward. A small bridge appears ahead, crossing over a narrow gap between rocky slopes. As the train moves onto it, the sound beneath you changes again, becoming lighter, more open. You glance down just in time to see the space below, a brief, suspended moment before the tracks meet solid ground again. Beyond the bridge, the terrain becomes more rugged. The trees thin out in places, revealing patches of rock and earth shaped by time and weather. The colors shift subtly, deeper greens blending with pale grays and soft browns. There is a rawness here, but it feels balanced, part of a larger harmony that continues to unfold. You notice a small station pass by, almost quietly. Just a platform, a sign, and a single bench facing the tracks. No one is waiting. No one boards. It exists for a moment, then slips away behind you. Like a quiet pause in the journey that doesn't ask to be held onto. Returning your attention inside, you see a conductor moving gently through the aisle, checking tickets with a calm efficiency. There is a brief exchange of words with a passenger, a soft confirmation, a small nod, and then he continues on. The interaction is simple, but it fits perfectly into the flow of everything around it. You decide to move again, drawn forward by the sense that there is always something just ahead worth noticing. The next carriage opens into a slightly different space, where the seats are arranged to face larger panoramic windows. A few people sit here, quietly watching, their reflections faintly visible in the glass. You take a place near one of these windows, allowing yourself to settle again, but with a new perspective. The mountains now feel closer, more immediate. Their slopes rise sharply, their textures more defined. Snow lingers in narrow lines along the higher edges, untouched and still. The train enters another curve, and for a moment, the view opens wide. Layers of mountains stretch into the distance, each one softer than the last, fading gently into the horizon. The sky above them is calm, its light diffused through thin clouds that move slowly, almost unnoticed. There is a quiet shift within you as you take it all in. The movement of the train, the changing views, the soft presence of others around you. Everything begins to blend into a single, continuous experience. Nothing feels separate. Nothing feels rushed. A faint reflection catches your eye in the window, your own outline blending with the mountains beyond. For a moment, it feels as though you are part of the landscape, moving with it, not just observing it. The boundary between inside and outside softens again, creating a sense of quiet connection. The train continues its steady climb, carrying you further along its path. And as it does, your awareness expands gently, not through effort, but through presence. Each detail, each shift in light, each subtle movement becomes something you notice naturally, without needing to search for it. You rest your hand against the window once more, feeling the same gentle vibration, now familiar and grounding. The journey no longer feels like something that has just begun. It feels like something you have stepped into, something that was already in motion and has simply welcomed you into its rhythm. Outside, the landscape continues to unfold, revealing new shapes, new textures, new moments that pass quietly but leave a lasting impression. And inside, you remain still, yet aware, moving forward without needing to do anything more than simply be present as the train carries you deeper into the mountains. The gentle motion continues beneath you, steady and reassuring, as if the train has found its natural pace. You remain by the window for a moment longer, watching the mountains shift slowly in perspective. But a quiet curiosity begins to pull you away from stillness. There is a sense that more of the journey exists just beyond this seat, waiting to be noticed from a different angle. You rise again, this time more comfortably, your body already familiar with the subtle sway of the carriage. The aisle feels like an extension of the movement outside, guiding you forward without urgency. A soft light filters in from the windows on both sides, creating a calm, balanced glow that follows you as you walk. As you pass through the carriage, small details begin to stand out more clearly. A folded jacket rests neatly on an empty seat. A pair of sunglasses catches a brief flash of sunlight. Someone gently turns a page of a book, the sound barely noticeable but somehow present. Each detail feels part of a quiet rhythm, not separate from it. You pause briefly near a window where the view opens toward a steep slope, rising close to the tracks. The mountain face here feels near enough to touch, its surface textured with patches of moss and stone. Thin streams of water trace their way downward, catching light in narrow lines before disappearing into the greenery below. The train curves again, and the perspective shifts quickly but smoothly. The slope falls away, revealing a wider space beyond. A cluster of wooden houses appears, arranged carefully along the curve of the land. Their dark roofs contrast softly with the lighter tones of the grass, and for a moment, it feels as though the train is passing through a quiet story unfolding in slow motion. You continue walking, moving between carriages with a growing sense of ease. The connection between them sways gently beneath your feet. A reminder that even as you move within the train, you are still part of its larger motion. The sound changes slightly with each transition, then settles again into the familiar rhythm. In the next carriage, you notice a small open space near the doors where a few passengers stand quietly, looking out. You step closer, joining them without needing to speak. The window here offers a slightly higher view, and the valley stretches out in a way that feels more expansive. A narrow road winds through the landscape below, its path curving gently between fields and clusters of trees. A small vehicle moves along it at a slow pace, almost blending into the scenery. There is no sense of separation between movement and stillness here. Everything seems to belong exactly where it is. The train begins to pass along the edge of a ridge, and the drop on one side becomes more pronounced. You can see farther now, beyond the immediate slopes, into layers of distant mountains that rise and fade in soft gradients. The air outside appears clearer, the light more defined, as if the elevation has brought you closer to something quieter and more open. A faint reflection in the glass shows the figures around you, all facing outward, sharing the same silent focus. No one speaks, yet there is a quiet connection in the way everyone watches the passing world. It feels less like observation and more like participation, as if simply being present is enough. After a while, you step back and continue moving, drawn by the sense that the journey keeps offering new spaces to explore. A narrow corridor leads you toward another section of the train, where the seating arrangement changes again. Here, the windows seem wider, the view less interrupted, inviting you to pause once more. You rest your hand lightly on the back of a seat, leaning just enough to look outside. The train crosses another bridge, this one longer, stretching across a deep cut in the landscape. The ground below feels distant, almost abstract, as the lines and shapes blur softly with the movement. Beyond the bridge, the terrain shifts again, The trees grow denser in places, their tops forming uneven patterns against the slopes. In other areas, the land opens into grassy clearings where the sunlight settles more fully, creating patches of brightness that move slowly as the train passes. You notice how the light continues to change, not dramatically, but in small, steady ways. It softens, then sharpens again, depending on the angle of the mountains and the passing clouds. These changes feel gentle, almost like breathing, expanding and settling without drawing attention to themselves. A quiet decision forms within you, not as a thought, but as a feeling, to remain here for a while. You ease into a nearby seat, allowing yourself to settle once more, this time with a deeper sense of awareness. The movement of the train feels familiar now, something you can rest into without thinking. Outside, a line of trees passes close to the window, their branches momentarily filling the frame before giving way to open space again. The contrast between near and far becomes more noticeable, creating a rhythm of closeness and distance that repeats gently as the journey continues. You begin to notice patterns in the landscape, the way the slopes rise and fall, the way the buildings appear in clusters, then disappear, the way the light traces the edges of things, revealing their shape before moving on. These patterns do not repeat exactly, but they echo each other in quiet ways. A soft sound nearby draws your attention briefly. Someone adjusts their bag, placing it carefully beside their seat. Another person shifts slightly, leaning closer to the window. These small movements feel natural, unspoken, part of the shared experience without interrupting it. The train moves into a section where the mountains feel closer again, their presence more immediate. The windows frame them tightly now, emphasizing their scale and texture. You can see the lines carved into the slopes, the subtle variations in color that reveal depth and time. There is a moment where the train slows slightly, almost imperceptibly. The change is subtle, but you feel it in the way the rhythm beneath you softens. Outside, a narrow passage between two rocky walls comes into view, and the train glides through it with quiet precision. As you emerge from this passage, the space opens once more, revealing a wider valley beyond. The transition feels smooth, almost like stepping from one room into another, each with its own character but connected by the same quiet flow. You lean back slightly, allowing your body to relax into the seat. The journey continues, but your awareness feels more settled now, more attuned to the small details that pass without effort. There is no need to search for anything. Everything arrives on its own. The mountains continue to guide the path, their presence steady and unchanging even as the views shift. And within this movement, you find a quiet balance between stillness and motion, between observing and simply being carried forward. The train moves on, deeper into its path, and you remain with it. Not as a passenger moving from one place to another, but as part of something unfolding gently, one moment at a time. The quiet rhythm of the journey continues, but now there is a subtle shift in how the space feels around you. The stillness is no longer only your own. It begins to feel shared, shaped gently by the presence of others who are moving through this same experience, each in their own quiet way. You notice a couple taking the seats across from you, their movements unhurried as they settle in. One of them glances out the window and softly says that the mountains look closer here, and the other nods, leaning slightly forward as if to see the same detail from a better angle. Their voices are low, almost blending into the background, yet they carry a warmth that adds something human to the stillness. The train curves again, and a wide view opens briefly. A few people nearby shift in their seats at the same time, as if responding to the landscape together without needing to say anything. Someone across the aisle lifts a phone, hesitates for a moment, then lowers it again, choosing simply to look instead. There is a quiet understanding in that choice, one that feels shared even without words. A soft laugh comes from a few rows behind you. It is brief and gentle, followed by a quiet comment about how the last tunnel felt longer than expected. Another voice replies that it made the view afterward feel brighter, and the two fall into a comfortable silence again. Their exchange lingers in the air for a moment, not as a distraction, but as a natural part of the journey's rhythm. You shift slightly in your seat, and the person beside you glances toward the window just as a distant waterfall comes into view. It appears suddenly, a thin white line against the darker rock, moving steadily downward. There, they say quietly, almost to themselves, and you follow their gaze. For a moment, you both watch it together, the shared attention creating a brief, quiet connection before the train carries the view away. The conductor passes through again, moving with the same calm presence as before. This time, there is a small pause near your seat as someone asks a question about the next stop. He answers softly, explaining that it will come after a few more bends through the mountains, his tone steady and reassuring. The passenger thanks him, and the conversation fades as gently as it began. The light shifts again, growing softer as clouds gather slightly overhead. A child nearby presses their hands lightly against the glass, tracing the outline of the passing landscape with quiet focus. An adult leans closer and says something about the peaks still having snow even this time of year. And the child nods, watching more carefully now, as if seeing it differently. You notice how these small interactions begin to shape the atmosphere inside the carriage. The space feels more alive, yet it remains calm. Conversations rise and fall without ever breaking the quiet flow. Each voice adds a layer, a texture, that blends naturally with the sound of the train and the movement outside. A gentle decision forms within you to move again, not out of restlessness, but out of curiosity. As you stand and step into the aisle, someone nearby shifts slightly to make space, offering a brief, polite smile that you return without thinking. There is no need for words. The gesture feels complete on its own. You walk slowly toward the next carriage, passing a pair of travelers quietly discussing a map spread across their laps. One of them points to a location and says it might be where the lake appears. And the other leans closer, tracing the route with a finger before folding the map carefully. Their focus is calm, their planning gentle, as if even decisions here follow the pace of the journey. The connection between carriages sways beneath your feet again, and as you step through, you hear a soft exhale from someone nearby, the kind that comes from simply taking in a view that doesn't need to be explained. You find yourself slowing, matching that same quiet response as you reach another window. Here, the landscape feels wider again, opening into a broad valley where the light settles more evenly. A small group stands near the glass, leaving just enough space for you to join them. One person mentions how the shadows move across the hills, and another quietly agrees, pointing out how the colors shift as the clouds pass overhead. You remain there for a while, not speaking, but listening to the soft exchanges around you. The words are simple, often just observations, but they carry a sense of presence that deepens the experience. It feels less like a series of individual moments and more like something shared, something unfolding collectively. A brief moment of stillness settles over the group as the train slows slightly, approaching another small station. The platform appears quietly, with a few people waiting, their figures still against the backdrop of the mountains. Someone near you wonders aloud if this is where the trail begins. And another replies that it might be, their tone thoughtful but relaxed. The train does not stop for long. A couple of passengers gather their belongings and step off, their movements calm and deliberate. There is no rush, no urgency, just a quiet transition as they move from one part of their journey to another. As the train begins to move again, a soft wave of motion passes through the carriage. Those who remain settle back into their seats, adjusting slightly, returning to their own rhythms. The group near the window slowly disperses, each person finding their place again without disrupting the calm. You return to your seat, carrying with you the quiet presence of those shared moments. The space feels familiar now, not just as a setting, but as something shaped by the people within it. The journey continues, but it feels different, richer in a subtle way. Outside, the mountains remain steady, their presence unchanged. But inside, there is a gentle warmth that wasn't there before, created by small exchanges, brief connections, and the simple act of noticing together. You rest your gaze on the passing landscape once more, aware now not only of what you see, but of the quiet life unfolding around you. The train carries all of it forward, the movement, the stillness, the voices, the silence, blending everything into a single, continuous experience that feels both personal and shared at the same time. The warmth of those shared moments lingers quietly as the train continues forward, but something begins to shift again. Almost like the journey is gathering a little more energy. The movement feels more purposeful now. Not faster, but fuller, as if the path ahead is opening into something broader and more alive. You remain by the window, but your attention moves more freely between inside and outside. The landscape begins to change with greater variety. The slopes rise higher, then fall away more dramatically, revealing deeper valleys and wider stretches of open space. The train follows these curves with quiet confidence, leaning gently into each turn as if it knows the route by heart. A soft glow of sunlight breaks through the thinning clouds, touching the mountains in scattered patches. The effect is immediate and striking. Sections of the landscape brighten suddenly, revealing textures and colors that were hidden just moments before. A grassy slope glows briefly, then fades as the light moves on. A distant ridge catches a golden edge, holding it just long enough to be noticed. There is a subtle stir among the passengers. Someone near you leans forward and quietly says that this must be one of the higher points. And another responds that the air looks clearer here. The words are simple, but there is a shared recognition in them, a sense that something in the journey has reached a more vivid stage. You feel it too, not as a thought, but as a quiet awareness. The train seems more connected to the landscape now, moving not just through it, but with it. The rhythm beneath you feels stronger, more present, like a steady pulse that matches the unfolding views. A sudden opening in the terrain reveals a wide alpine meadow stretching far beyond the tracks. The grass appears softer here, almost glowing under the sunlight, and scattered across it are small wooden huts, spaced evenly as if placed with care. For a moment, everything feels still, even as the train moves forward. A few people nearby shift closer to the window, and you find yourself doing the same without thinking. Someone softly says, "Look at that," and there is no need to ask what they mean. The scene speaks clearly on its own. The quiet admiration passes between everyone without effort. The train begins a longer curve along the edge of the meadow, giving you time to take in the full view. In the distance, you notice a group of animals grazing slowly, their movement calm and unhurried. The scale of the scene feels balanced, nothing too large, nothing too small, everything fitting naturally into place. As the train continues, the meadow gradually gives way to a steeper incline. The mountains rise again, this time more sharply, their peaks cutting clean lines against the sky. Snow becomes more visible now, resting in wider patches along the higher edges, bright against the darker rock. You feel a gentle excitement building, not intense or overwhelming, but steady and present. It comes from the way each new view seems to unfold with a little more clarity, a little more openness. As if the journey has reached a point where everything reveals itself more fully. A tunnel approaches again, longer this time. The train enters it smoothly, and the sudden shift into darkness feels deeper than before. The sound changes, becoming fuller, echoing slightly as it surrounds you. Inside the carriage, the reflections become clearer, faces and shapes appearing softly in the glass. For a moment, the outside world disappears completely. The focus turns inward, to the quiet presence of the people around you, to the steady rhythm of the train, to the calm stillness that holds everything together. Then, just as gradually, the light returns. The train emerges into a scene that feels brighter and more open than before. The sky stretches wider, the light clearer, and the mountains stand taller, their details sharper against the air. There is a sense of arrival in this moment, not at a destination, but at a point in the journey where everything feels more alive. A collective stillness settles briefly in the carriage, as if everyone is taking in the same realization at once. No one speaks immediately. The view holds attention completely. Then, softly, someone lets out a quiet breath and says that it was worth the ride for this alone. Another voice agrees, almost in a whisper, and a few gentle nods follow. The shared feeling moves through the space without needing to be explained. You remain by the window, feeling more at ease now, more connected to everything around you. The movement of the train feels natural, almost familiar, as if your body has adjusted to its rhythm completely. Outside, a narrow mountain lake appears suddenly, its surface still and reflective, mirroring the peaks above with quiet clarity. The color is deep and calm, a shade that feels almost untouched. The train follows its edge briefly, allowing the view to linger just long enough to leave an impression. You notice how your attention moves effortlessly now, from one detail to another, without searching. The landscape draws your gaze naturally, guiding it from the lake to the slopes, from the slopes to the sky, and back again. A nearby passenger gestures lightly toward the water and says it looks unreal. And someone else responds that it almost feels like a painting. There is a soft smile in their voice, a kind of quiet amazement that doesn't need to be expressed loudly. The train begins another ascent, steady and smooth, carrying you even higher into the mountains. The air outside appears thinner, clearer, and the light feels sharper, more defined. Every edge, every shadow, every line in the landscape becomes more visible. Inside, the atmosphere remains calm, But there is a subtle energy now, a quiet engagement that wasn't there before. People shift slightly more often, leaning in, turning their heads, adjusting their view. The journey feels active, not in movement alone, but in attention, in presence. You feel it within yourself as well. A sense of ease has settled in, allowing you to move, to observe, to simply be part of the experience without hesitation. There is no longer a sense of watching from a distance. You are fully within it. The train follows the curve of a high ridge, and for a moment, the view opens on both sides. Mountains stretch outward in every direction, their layers fading softly into the distance. The sky above feels vast, almost endless, holding everything in a quiet, steady light. There is a brief silence in the carriage again, deeper this time, not empty, but full. It carries a kind of shared awareness, a recognition that this moment is something rare. Something that doesn't need to be captured or held onto, only experienced as it passes. You rest your hand against the window once more, feeling the familiar vibration beneath your fingers. It feels grounding, connecting you to the movement, to the path, to everything unfolding around you. The train continues forward, steady and calm, but the journey now feels richer, more complete. The movement, the light, the presence of others, and your own quiet awareness have come together into something that feels whole. And as the mountains continue to rise and fall around you, you remain there, fully present. Carried forward not just by the train, but by the experience itself, unfolding in its most vivid and natural form. The wide openness begins to soften almost without notice, as if the journey itself is slowly exhaling after reaching its highest point. The movement of the train remains steady, but something in the atmosphere becomes quieter, more settled, as though the path ahead no longer needs to reveal anything new. You stay by the window, though your gaze is less focused now on any single detail. The landscape continues to pass, but it feels gentler, less about discovery and more about presence. The sharp contrasts of light begin to fade into softer tones, and the edges of things lose their urgency, blending into a calmer, more even view. Inside the carriage, the subtle energy that had built earlier begins to ease. People return to stillness in their own ways. A few lean back into their seats, their posture relaxed. Others keep their gaze outward, but with a quieter attention, as if the need to take in every detail has gently dissolved. A soft conversation nearby trails off into silence, not because it has ended abruptly, but because it no longer needs to continue. The words have already been shared, and what remains is a quiet understanding that sits comfortably in the space between people. You notice your own breathing, steady and unforced, matching the calm rhythm beneath you. The motion of the train feels almost like a gentle cradle now, something that supports rather than carries. Time seems to stretch slightly, not slowing, but loosening its hold on your awareness. Outside, the terrain begins to feel more familiar again, though not in a way that repeats what has already passed. It is more like a quiet return to balance, where nothing stands out too strongly, and everything exists in a calm, steady harmony. You shift slightly in your seat, not out of restlessness, but to settle more comfortably into this quieter phase. The window beside you reflects a faint image of your surroundings, blending the inside and outside into a single, soft layer. For a moment, it feels as though the journey exists both within and around you at the same time. A gentle announcement moves through the carriage, its tone calm and even. marking the approach of the next stage without interrupting the stillness. No one reacts quickly. There is no sudden movement. Just a quiet awareness that the journey is continuing, changing, and slowly approaching its close. Someone nearby gathers their belongings with slow, careful movements. A bag is lifted. A jacket is folded. Another person adjusts their seat, glancing once more out the window before letting their gaze rest. You follow that instinct, allowing yourself one more unhurried look outside. The view no longer asks to be explored. It simply exists, calm and complete, offering itself without expectation. You take it in gently, without trying to hold on to it. The train begins to ease its pace, so subtly that it feels more like a soft shift than a clear change. The rhythm beneath you slows, the sound of the tracks becoming lighter, more spaced. The movement that once carried a sense of progression now feels like it is guiding you toward stillness. You rest your hand lightly against the window again, feeling that familiar vibration, now softer than before. It is still there, steady and reassuring, but it no longer defines the experience. It simply supports it, like a quiet background to everything else. There is a moment where nothing in particular happens, and yet it feels complete. No new view appears. No new sound draws your attention. And still, the experience feels full, as if everything that needed to unfold already has. You notice how the presence of others remains, even in this quiet. Someone exhales softly. Another shifts their weight. These small sounds do not break the silence. They belong to it, adding a gentle sense of life that continues even as the journey slows. Your thoughts feel lighter now, less like something you follow and more like something that passes quietly. There is no need to reflect in words. The experience has already settled into something deeper, something that stays without needing to be held. The train moves forward just a little more, then begins to ease further, its motion becoming almost imperceptible. The outside world no longer moves quickly past the window. Instead, it drifts slowly, as if giving you time to arrive fully at this final moment. You sit there, calm and aware, not waiting for anything, not expecting anything. The journey has carried you through movement, through observation, through quiet connection, and now into stillness. And in this stillness, there is a gentle sense of completion. Not an ending that closes something, but one that settles softly, leaving behind a feeling that remains even as the moment passes. The train comes closer to rest, and with it, your awareness settles fully into the present. There is no rush to stand, no need to move yet, just a quiet pause, held gently in time. And as you sit there, you realize that what stays with you is not any single view or moment, but the feeling of having been part of something continuous, something calm, something quietly meaningful. The journey becomes less of a sequence and more of a presence, something that now exists within you as a steady, peaceful memory. The doors will open soon. The next step will come. But for now, there is only this quiet space, this final moment of stillness, where everything feels complete. This is the Orbital English, where we explore and learn English gently and naturally. Take a slow breath and let this calm feeling stay with you a little longer. You've done something meaningful today. You listened, you felt, you learned. And slowly, quietly, your English is becoming a part of you. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital English and keep your thoughts bright.